are inseparable from any other relations in social and domestic life. But Tom, as we see, being a poor, ignorant fellow, whose reading had been confined entirely to the New Testament, could not comfort and solace himself with views like this. His very soul bled within him for what seemed to him the wrongs of the poor suffering thing that lay like a crushed reed of the boxes. The feeling, living, bleeding, yet immortal thing, which American state law coolly classes with the bundles and bales and boxes among which she is lying. Tom drew near and tried to say something, but she only groaned. Honestly, and with tears running down his own cheeks, he spoke of a heart of love in the skies, of a pitying Jesus, and an eternal home, but the ear was deaf with anguish, and the pulses heart could not feel. Night came on, night calm, unmoved and glorious, shining down with her innumerable and solemn angel eyes, twinklingly beautiful but silent. There was no speech nor language, no pitying voice nor helping hand. From that distant sky, one after another, the voices of business or pleasure died away. All on the boat were sleeping, and the ripples at the prow were plainly heard. Tom stretched himself out of a box, and there, as he lay, he heard ever and anon a smothered sob or cry from the prostrate creature. "Oh, what should I do? Oh, Lord! Oh, good Lord, do help me!" And so, ever and anon, until the murmur died away in silence. At midnight, Tom waked with a sudden start. Something black passed quickly by him to the side of the boat, and he heard a splash in the water. No one else saw or heard anything. He raised his head. The woman's place was vacant. He got up and sought about him in vain. The poor, bleeding heart was still. At last, the rivers rippled and dimpled just as brightly as if it had not closed above it. Patient, patient! Yalewood's heart swelled indignant at wrongs like this. Not one of throat of anguish, not one tear of the oppressed, is forgotten by the man of sorrows, the Lord of glory. In his patient, generously bosom he bears the anguish of a world, bared though, like him, in patience, and labors in love. For sure as he is God, the year of his redeemed shall come. The trader waked up bright and early, and came out to see to his livestock. It was now his turn to look about in perplexity. "Where alive is that gal?" he said to Tom. Tom, who had learned the wisdom of keeping counsel, did not feel called on to state his observations and suspicions, but said he did not know. She surely couldn't have got up in the night of any of the landings, for I was awake, on the lookout whenever the boat stopped. I never trust these yer things to other folks. This speech was addressed to Tom quite confidentially, as if it was something that would be specially interesting to him. Tom made no answer. The trader searched the boat from stern to stern, among boxes, bales, and barrels around the machinery, but the chimney in vain. "Now, I say, Tom, be fair about this year," he said, when after a fruitless search he came where Tom was standing. "You know something about it. Now, don't tell me. I know you do. I saw the gal stretch out here about 10 o'clock, and aging in at 12, and aging between 1 and 2, and then at 4 she was gone, and she was sleeping right there all the time. Now, you know something. You can't help it." "Well, master," said Tom, "towards morning something brushed by me, and I kinder half woke, and then I hear a great splash, and then I clear woke up, and the gal was gone. That's all I know on it." The trader was not shocked nor amazed, because, as we said before, he was used to great many things that you are not used to. Even the awful presence of death struck a solemn chill upon him. He had seen death many times, met him in the way of trade, and got acquainted with him, and he only thought of him as a hard customer that embraced his property of operations very unfairly, and so he only swore that the gal was a baggage, and that he was devilish unlucky, and that if things went on in his way, he should not make a cent on the trip. In short, he seemed to consider himself an ill-used man, decidedly, but there was no help for it, as the woman had escaped into a state which never will give up a fugitive, not even at the demand of the whole glorious Union. The trader, therefore, sat discontentedly down with his little account book, and put down the missing body and soul under the hurt of losses. He's a shocking creature, isn't he, this trader? So unfeeling. It's dreadful, really. Oh, but nobody thinks anything of these traders. They are universally despised, never received into any decent society. But who, sir, makes a trader? Who is most to blame? The enlightened, cultivated, intelligent man who supports the system of which the trader is the inevitable result, or the poor trader himself? You mean the public sentiment that calls for this trade, that debauches and depraves him, till he feels no shame in it. And in what are you better than he? Are you educated and he ignorant? You high and he low, you refined and he coarse, you talented and he simple? In the day of a future judgment, these very considerations may make it more tolerable for him than for you. In concluding this little instance of lawful trade, we must beg the world not to think that American legislators are entirely destitute of humanity, as might, perhaps, be unfairly inferred from the great effort made in our national body to protect and perpetuate this species of traffic. Who does not know how our great men are outdoing themselves in declaiming against the foreign slave trade? There are a perfect host of Clarksons, and Wilberforce is risen up among us on the subject, most edifying to hear and behold. Trading Negroes from Africa, dear reader, is so horrid. It is not to be thought of, but trading them from Kentucky, that's quite another thing. Volume 2, from Chapter 26. Death. Weep not for those whom the veil of the tomb, in life's early morning, had bid from our eyes. Mamma, said Eva, I want to have some of my hair cut off, a good deal of it. What for? Said Mary. Mamma, I want to give some away to my friends. Well, I'm able to give it to them myself. Won't you ask Auntie to come and cut it for me? Mary raised her voice and called Miss Ophelia from the other room. The child half rose from her pillow as she came in, and shaking down her long golden brown curls, said rather playfully, Come, Auntie, shear the sheep. What's that? Said St. Clair, who just then entered with some fruit he had been out to get for her. Papa, I just want Auntie to cut off some of my hair. There's too much of it, and it makes my head hot. Besides, I want to give some of it away. Miss Ophelia came with her scissors. Take care. Don't spoil the looks of it, said her father. Cut underneath, where it won't show. Eva's curls are my pride. Oh, Papa, said Eva, sadly. Yes, and I want them kept handsome against the time I take you up to your uncle's plantation to see Cousin Harriet, said St. Clair, in the gay town. I shall never go there, Papa. I'm going to be a better country. Oh, do you believe me? Don't you see, Papa, that I get weaker every day? "Why do you insist that I should believe such a cruel thing, Eva?" said her father. "Only because it is true, Papa. And if you will believe it now, perhaps you will get to feel about it as I do." St. Clair closed his lips, and stood gloomily evening the long, beautiful curls, which, as they were separated from the child's head, were laid, one by one, in her lap. She raised them up, looked earnestly at them, twined them around her thin fingers, and looked, from time to time, anxiously at her father. "It's just what I've been foreboding," said Mary. "It's just what has been preying on my head, from day to day, bringing me downward to the grave, though nobody regards it. I have seen this long, St. Clair. You will see, after a while, that I was right." "Which will afford you great consolation, no doubt," said St. Clair in a dry, bitter tone. Mary lay back on the lounge, and covered her face with her cambric handkerchief. Eva's clear blue eye looked earnestly from one to the other. It was the calm, comprehending gaze of a soul half loosed from its earthly bound. It was evident she saw, felt, and appreciated the difference between the two. She beckoned with her hand to her father. He came and sat down by her. "Papa, my strength fades away every day, and I know I must go. There are some things I want to say and do, that I ought to do, and you are so unwilling to have me speak a word on this subject. But it must come. There is no putting it off. Do be willing I should speak now." "My child, I am willing," said St. Clair, covering his eyes with one hand, and holding up Eva's hand with the other. "Then I want to see all our people together. I have some things I must say to them," said Eva. "Well," said St. Clair in a tone of dry endurance. Miss Ophelia dispatched a messenger, and soon the whole of the servants were convented in the room. Eva lay back on her pillows, her hair hanging loosely about her face, her crimson cheeks contrasting painfully with the intense whiteness of her complexion and the thin contour of her limbs and features, and her large soul-like eyes fixed earnestly on everyone. The servants were struck with sudden emotion. The spiritual face, the long locks of hair cut off and lying by her, her father's averted face, and Mary's sobs, struck at once upon the feelings of sensitive and impressible race, and, as they came in, they looked one on another, sighed, and shook their heads. There was a deep silence like that of a funeral. Eva raised herself, and looked long and earnestly round at everyone. All looked sad and apprehensive. Many of the women hid their faces in their aprons. "I sent for you all, my dear friends," said Eva, "because I love you. I love you all, and I have something to say to you, which I want you always to remember. I am going to leave you. In a few more weeks, you will see me no more." Here the child was interrupted by bursts of groan, sobs, and lamentation, which broke from all present, and which her slender voice was lost entirely. She waited a moment, and then, speaking in a tone that checked the sob of all, she said, "If you love me, you must not interrupt me so. Listen to what I say. I want to speak to you about your souls. Many of you, I'm afraid, are very careless. You are thinking only about this world. I want you to remember that there is a beautiful world where Jesus is. I'm going there, and you can go there. It is for you, as much as me. But if you want to go there, you must not live idle, careless, thoughtless lives. You must be Christians. You must remember that each one of you can become angels, and be angels forever. If you want to be Christians, Jesus will help you. You must pray to him. You must read." The child checked herself, looked piteously at them, and said sorrowfully, "Oh dear, you can't read, poor souls." And she hid her face in the pillow and sobbed. While many a smother sob from those she was addressing, who were kneeling on the floor, aroused her. "Never mind," she said, raising her face and smiling brightly through her tears. "I have prayed for you, and I know Jesus will help you, even if you can't read. Try all to do the best you can. Pray every day. Ask him to help you. And get a Bible read to you whenever you can. And I think I shall see you all in heaven." "Amen," was the murmured response from the lips of Tom and Mammy. And some of the elder ones who belonged to the Methodist Church. The younger and more thoughtless ones, for the time completely overcome, were sobbing, with their heads bowed upon their knees. "I know," said Eva. "You all love me." "Yes, oh yes, indeed, we do. Lord bless her," was the involuntary answer of all. "Yes, I know you do. There isn't one of you that hasn't always been very kind to me, and I want to give you something that, when you look at, you shall always remember me. I'm going to give all of you a curl of my hair, and when you look at it, think that I loved you and am gone to heaven, and that I want to see you all there." It is impossible to describe the scene, as with tears and sobs they gathered round the little creature, and took from her hands what seemed to them the last mark of her love. They fell on their knees, they sobbed, they prayed, and kissed the hem of her garment, and the elder ones poured forth words of endearment, mingling prayers and blessing, after the manner of their susceptible race. As each one took their gift, Miss Ophelia, who was apprehensive for the effect of all this excitement on her little patient, signed to each one of them to pass out of the apartment. At last, all were gone but Tom and Mammy. "Here, Uncle Tom," said Eva, "is a beautiful one for you." "Oh, I'm so happy, Uncle Tom, to think I shall see you in heaven, for I'm sure I shall. And Mammy, dear good kind Mammy," she said, fondly throwing her arms round her old nurse, "I know you'll all be there too. Oh, Miss Eva, don't see how I can live without you. No, how," said the faithful creature. "'Pears like it's just taking everything off the place to onset." And Mammy gave way to a passion of grief. Miss Ophelia pushed her and Tom gently from the apartment, and thought they were all gone. But as she turned, Topsy was standing there. "Where did you start off from?" she said suddenly. "I was here," said Topsy, wiping the tears from her eyes. "Oh, Miss Eva, I've been a bad girl, but won't you give me one too?" "Yes, poor old Topsy, to be sure I will. There, every time you look at that, think that I love you, and wanted you to be a good girl." "Oh, Miss Eva, I is trying," said Topsy earnestly, "but Lord, it's so hard to be good. 'Pears like I ain't used to it, no ways." "Jesus knows it, Topsy. He is sorry for you. He will help you." Topsy, with her eyes hid in her apron, was sadly passed from the apartment by Miss Ophelia. But as she went, she hid a precious curl in her bosom. Eva had been unusually bright and cheerful that afternoon, and had sat raised in her bed, looked over all her little trinkets and precious things, and designated to friends to whom she would have them given. And her manner was more animated, and her voice was more natural, than they had known it for weeks. Her father had been in the evening, and had said that Eva appeared more like her former self than ever she had done since her sickness. And when he kissed her for the night, he said to Miss Ophelia, "Cousin, we may keep her with us. After all, she is certainly better." And he had retired with a lighter heart in his bosom than he had had there for weeks. But at midnight, the strange mystic hour, when the veil between the frail present and the eternal future grew thin, there came the messenger. There was a sound in that chamber, first of one who stepped quickly. It was Miss Ophelia, who had resolved to sit up all night with her little charge, and who, at the turn of the night, had discerned what experienced nurses significantly called a change. The outer door was quickly opened, and Tom, who was watching outside, was on the alert in a moment. "Go for the doctor, Tom." "Lose not a moment," said Miss Ophelia, and stepping across the room, she rapped at St. Clair's door. "Cousin," she said, "I wish you would come." Those words fell on his heart like clods upon a coffin. Why did they? He was up in the room in an instant, but bending over Eva, who still slept. What was it he saw that made his heart stand still? Why was no word spoken between the two? Thou can't say. Who has seen that same expression on the face dearest to thee, that looking indescribable, hopeless, unmistakable, that says to thee that thee beloved is no longer thine? On the face of the child, however, there was no ghastly imprint, only a high and almost sublime expression, the overshadowing presence of the spiritual natures, and dawning of immortal life in that childish soul. They stood there so still, gazing upon her, that even the ticking of the watches seemed too loud. In a few moments, Tom returned with the doctor. He entered, gave one look, and stood silent as the rest. "When did this change take place?" said he in a low whisper to Miss Ophelia. "About the turn of the night," was the reply. Mary, roused by the entrance of the doctor, appeared hurriedly from the next room. "Augustine, cousin, oh, what?" she hurriedly began. "Hush," said St. Clair, hoarsely. "She is dying." Mammy heard the words, and flew to awaken the servants. The house was soon rose. Lights were seen, footsteps heard, anxious faces thronged the veranda, and looked tearfully through the glass doors. But St. Clair heard and said nothing. He saw only that look on the face of a little sleeper. "Oh, if she would only wake and speak once more," he said, and stooping over her, he spoke in her ears. "Eva, darling." The large blue eyes unclosed. A smile passed over her face. She tried to raise her head and to speak. "Do you know me, Eva?" "Dear papa," said the child, with a last effort, throwing her arms about his neck. In a moment they dropped again, and as St. Clair raised his head, he saw a response of mortal agony pass over the face. She struggled for breath, and threw up her little hands. "Oh God, this is dreadful," he said, turning away in agony, and wringing Tom's hand, scarce conscious what he was doing. "Oh, Tom, my boy, it is killing me." Tom had his master's hands between his own, and, with tears streaming down his dark cheeks, looked up for help where he had always been used to look. "Pray that this may be cut short," said St. Clair. "This wrings my heart." "Oh, bless the Lord, it's over. It's over, dear master," said Tom. "Look at her." The child lay panting on her pillows, as one exhausted. The large clear eyes rolled up and fixed. Ah, what said those eyes? That spoke so much of heaven. Earth was past, an earthly pain, but so solemn, so mysterious was heaven. Was the triumphant brightness of that face, that it checked even the sob of sorrow. They pressed around her in breathless stillness. "Eva," said St. Clair, gently. She did not hear. "Oh, Eva, tell us what you see. What is it?" said her father. A bright, a glorious smile passed over her face, and she said, brokenly, "Oh, love, joy, peace!" gave one sigh, and passed from death up onto life. "Farewell, beloved child. The bright, eternal doors have closed after thee. We shall see thee sweet face no more. Oh, woe for them who watch the entrance into heaven, when they shall awake and find only the cold grey sky of daily life, and thou gone forever."